Is it possible to change things? Can I rise above the flood? Will the process cleanse my soul?
Hey guys, welcome back to In the Blood. Today is Friday, March 21st, at least where you are. My name is AC Bergen-Fischer. With me, as almost all of the time, is Jason the Dice Man Moore.
Always in the heart. Always in the heart.
Always. Well, I think that kind of ties into, what you wanted to chat about today, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So I've prepared a little bit of a statement to open it up with. So bear with me for a second here.
How professional.
Yes, I'm reading it. Okay.
Ooh.
So strong friendships don't just happen. They're built through intentional effort and genuine care. In the busyness of life, it's easy to take our platonic relationships for granted. But the truth is, the quality of our relationships and the quality of our friendships directly impacts our happenings and well-beings. So, how can we nurture and strengthen these bonds, even in our off time? And by off time, I mean like when you're not actually interacting. Do people just sit back and think about their relationships and how the last interaction went so they can better themselves for the next?
That's really good food for thought, actually.
Yeah, because I'm a pretty smart guy. So what's your take?
First of all, I'm finding it a little distracting that you're not looking at the camera, but that's probably intentional on your end.
Because I'm looking at you, yeah.
Okay. Okay. God, this is the kind of like awkward lack of professionalism that you thought, like, you think that after all the years that we've been doing this, that would just have become a non-factor. But here we are, I don't know how many years in, like, day one podcasters. But
just as a side note, I never thought we'd be that good anyways.
So maybe instead of thinking about how to better our relationships, we should be thinking about how to better our podcast game. But I digress. I haven't forgotten your question, and I am slowly getting towards answering it.
All right.
It's something that I didn't realize that I was doing, or at least I didn't realize that I should do until another friend of mine had kind of taken me to task in a very friendly way. And I think because she had taken me to task, that sort of like jump-started the scenario where I was thinking about our friendship outside of the time when we were directly interacting. And really what she had said is, I don't hear from you often enough. She says, I'm a very insecure person. It's not like I expect you to be like smothering me. She says, but if it's gone a day or two, even if it's just a quick text to say, hi, you're on my mind. Do you mind doing that? Because otherwise I start feeling like you don't care. And then I withdraw. And you're not the type of person who's going to come and chase me down. And then we both end up sitting there thinking that the other person doesn't care anymore. And for me, this was an interesting insight because, like with you and I, Jason, we've got years and years of habits that I think healthy habits for the most part, where these sort of news flashes aren't super normal anymore.
Right.
And with you, as like we've discussed previously on this show, like if it goes 2 days, 2 weeks, or even like 2 months, I'm not going to sit there thinking you stop loving me. But with this other friend of mine, that's exactly what she was thinking. And I realized that I can't approach every relationship as though it's our relationship. So what I've been kind of getting in the habit of now is like when I talk to her, I pay attention to some of the last things she said in the conversation. Like if she's got something coming up, Like even if it's something as simple as like, oh, I got a dentist appointment on Wednesday. Well, then I'll make sure that Wednesday evening I'll set a Google Calendar reminder, like text so and so, find out how the dentist went.
Right.
So that even though this person may not necessarily be on my mind in the moment, I can offer the illusion of that for the betterment of the friendship. And it's not that it's dishonest. I do care, because if I didn't care, I wouldn't have set the calendar alert.
Right.
It just, I don't remember to care when it matters to her. Does
Well,
that kind of like tie into what you're thinking about?
absolutely. But it also puts a different level on it because that's still a premature relationship, right? There's no real background built, right? This is,
Right.
I'm going to say under a year. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
under a year
Yeah.
for sure.
So it's still a premature relationship. Therefore, I can see why those insecurities were there. I can remember having insecurities about our starting of a friendship, different reasons, because in the beginning we didn't like each other, and then we decided to like each other. And from that, I had insecurities in the beginning about whether or not you were genuinely liking me or you're just putting up with me because we just happen to be together all the time, because circumstance was throwing us together more than intention.
Correct.
So I can totally understand where she's coming from. And I think that's a two-person job in that one. Because there are things she's got to do to stop being insecure. She can't totally rely on you. But in the same respect, maybe you can do a little bit more. And, every couple of days she sends you a text. And then every couple of days you send her a text. That means there's 4 days where you don't have to text directly.
Right.
Because, I know your texting likes are like here. Your phone conversation wants are here. So, your way of reaching out may not be a text, maybe a quick phone call. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, just thinking about you.
No, and I think that like part of this whole thing was like her bringing up her insecurities too. It gave me a chance to just say, hey, look, I'm not trying to come off like a jerk here, but if that's the kind of friend you're looking for, the kind who's just like platonically swooning over you nonstop and like texting you 140 times a day, I'm not that person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like if you want to have a meaningful conversation once in a while, cool. If I don't talk to you for a couple of weeks, it's like don't take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
my own kid, I only talk to once a month, like my older one.
Yep.
And it's not for a lack of love, and it's not that I'm not thinking about them. It's just, like adult kids, they got their own lives, and I don't want to be that dad who's smothering. And I know that the kid will reach out if they need me.
Yep.
Just like I've got the option of reaching out if I need them, but the rest of the time, it's like, much as it pains me, I just have to respect that the way that things are.
Mm-hmm.
But I am at the same time, like back to your point, constantly thinking about how can I better approach that relationship when we do come together? What are some things that I would like to talk about?
Right. Well, and maybe one of the things to talk about is this conversation that you're having right now in dialogue with me, but pretty much like, you're thinking it out as you're talking about it. Because it doesn't sound like there's been opportunity to set a lot of boundaries yet. So maybe that's the first conversation. And what you and I are doing right now is thinking about another relationship when you're not currently active in that relationship, which is exactly what our topic is about today. What do we do when we're not in a relationship or when we're not currently in a conversation, and making adjustments away from that conversation to make the next conversation better or the next interaction better, whatever. Whether that's with somebody or by yourself in your own time is irrelevant. It's just taking the time to do it, which is what we're doing right now about that relationship. So we're practicing what we preach.
Yeah, interesting concept.
Yeah.
So, just to make things all about us, because I mean,
Well,
that's good stuff. What do you do like in relation to me, like in between our conversations?
Um, well, whenever now, I'm a little bit more outside of the box because I'm not a normal thinker. I having conversations with other people, I've come to the conclusion that I'm not a normal thinker.
Don't
And
limit it to the thinking. You're just not normal.
Okay, for this conversation, thank you. Oh. So when you and I have a conversation, let's say on the phone, when you and I are done the conversation, I take a few minutes and I evaluate our conversation. And I try to pick it apart a little bit. What did I do well? What did you do well? What did I do wrong? What did you do wrong? In my opinion, not necessarily fact. And in doing that, it allows me to bring up talking points that, maybe you did something that bothered me, so I can think about how to address that without coming off like a douchebag. But it also gives me the opportunity to evaluate my side of the conversation and better it or make a little bit of a tweak because maybe I didn't like the way I presented myself and, oh, well, you know what, that seemed kind of sappy and that's not how that was intended. So next time, when I'm going to come, I got to be a little bit more proactive in my head about how I'm actually conversing and get out of that, oh, I'm comfortable, so I'm just going to talk.
Yeah, that after the fact check in as far as like your end of things. I find that like I actually I on both ends of it. I didn't realize until you just articulated it that that's something that I find myself doing too. It's like because I know that I have kind of an abrupt way of communicating with the people that are closest to me, assuming that they know where I'm coming from sometimes. And there are times where like I've had to text you after the fact, it's like, hey, did I come off as shitty because I didn't mean to?
Yeah, I think I remember getting that text. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
But I mean, there's other times too where it's like you said something in I hate when you get into like these frames of mind where it's like, well, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. But I mean, let's be realistic. That's where things get aggravating is in the how
Mhm.
most of the time, right? And there's been times where I've gotten off the phone with you or I've gotten a text from you and I'm like, okay, what is this guy's malfunction? Like, why are you coming at me this way? And then that ties into like something we've talked about a lot over the years where that instantly shifts it. Okay, why am I taking it this way? But I get kind of stuck in that loop, that back and forth, because I mean, part of it definitely is the way I'm receiving it, but part of it also is like trying to get an understanding of, okay, were you intending it to be harsh? Were you intending to be dismissive? Like, I do have to establish what your intent is, whether or not I'm owning my own responsibility for being offended. I still want to know what I'm dealing with
Right.
because I need to know whether this is the kind of thing where I need to just take some me time and figure out what my unhealthy reactions are all about,
Or were they unhealthy?
right? Or do I need to come up with you and it's like this time for conversation about boundaries?
Yep. And we frequently have those conversations. But we've also, throughout our relationship, made one of our boundaries is that if one infringes on a boundary, we're able to bring it up point blank to them.
Right.
And it's the preset. We're definitely better for it.
Yeah, so I mean, like I could think of a lot of different specific ways in which this manifests, but I mean, I don't know where you were hoping to go with the conversation, but I'm kind of sitting here thinking that like the specifics to me anyways aren't super important. I think what is more important to me like is as far as what I want to share with people is that we actually engage in these ways. Engage with ourselves, engage with each other.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not telling you let's not talk about the specifics. I don't know where exactly your head's at. So I mean I want to leave the door open for that too.
I, to be totally honest, my head's not in any specific place. It's just I would also like to examine because what people I'm hoping people realize, but what people might not realize is that we don't only do this for our benefit, we do it for other people's benefit. So they can learn from our experiences or from us being dumbasses, whatever the situation happens to be. And take their relationships to a new level. So when we come into a conversation, I sometimes find myself stifling because I'm not sure what I want to deliver. And that's part of, even though I don't see our audience, that's part of also doing that off the fact, check it. Yeah.
No, it's now that you mentioned the audience too. I mean, that's kind of interesting because I mean, we are at a weird disadvantage with the way we relate to them compared to how we would relate to other people that are in our lives,
Mhm.
in that we're not getting that frequent and quick feedback.
Right.
So there's a lot of second guessing that goes along, a lot of wondering, how do we bring things up in a way that they're going to land well?
Mhm.
What do we bring up? What's going to be meaningful?
Mhm.
And once in a while, when we get that negative bit of feedback, like, okay, is this indicative of what everybody's thinking, or is this just one dink? And we don't know. And it's not like I'm like trying to rag on the audience for this. I mean, it's a function of how this dynamic works. It's not that the audience is doing anything wrong
Right.
or that they're avoiding doing something right. It's just that when we get into our interpersonal relationships with the people where we do have the luxury of picking up the phone or sending a text or an email, whatever, I think maybe let's not leave them wondering the way you and I are forced to wonder with the audience here. Like, we spend so much time wishing that there was better engagement, more feedback.
Mhm.
You know, like if I'm talking about my inner circle, like with you or my partner, I don't always like it when I get challenging feedback, but I always appreciate it because at least I'm not like stuck filling in the blanks for myself. Somebody's telling me, look, this is exactly how and when and where you did something that wasn't well appreciated.
Right. Well, and it's nice to be in a position that we can be mindful of that, that we can be the ones that, somebody sent in a negative review to us. They said, hey, this happened, that happened, and I think this part of your conversation sucked. I welcome that as well,
Oh yeah.
because that's how we learn. That's how we listen to you guys and we turn it into what we're doing right now, which is all part of communication. We may not be able to get instant feedback. But again, if you guys can think about our relationship and send us emails, then we can better ourselves for you guys.
Yeah. And I think, just like with any other relationship, I mean, it doesn't have to be positive, it doesn't have to be negative, it doesn't have to be anything. It could just be like, I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. Or I don't appreciate you. Either way, it's if there's a little bit of a descriptor behind that, so that we can address it and be better for it, that would definitely help.
Well, it's the thing. I mean, there's a world, a difference between telling somebody, you know what, you suck,
Mhm.
or telling them you suck because XYZ.
Right.
I can handle somebody telling me why they think I suck because I mean, like I don't know if I've like talked about this before, but I mean, when I was watching Kitchen or Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay, he was talking about. Oh God, now I'm second guessing which Gordon Ramsay show it is. I got to stop with the ADHD brain. Anyways, Gordon Ramsay was telling somebody, anyways, that he only pays attention to negative feedback because he doesn't need people blowing smoke up his ass. The
Right.
negative feedback is where the learning opportunities are. And I found that whereas the negative feedback kind of hurts my feelings, because while offense very, very much is taken, it's not given, my feelings still are easily hurt from certain people.
Mhm.
But it's almost like I need that emotional pang to take the comment seriously. That hurt feeling motivates me to pay attention. It motivates me to try to like think, okay, if there are changes that need to be made, I would rather make them so that I don't have to get this kind of hurtful feedback anymore. And then we could just like focus on people blowing smoke up on my ass. Because unlike Ramsey, I kind of do like the positive feedback as well. I need
Mhm.
it because I'm
It's
an
a mix of
insecure
both.
person.
Yeah. Yeah, I come from a little bit of a different angle. I don't take positive or negative feedback in any way. I just take it as feedback and I deal with it. Kind of like the frickin' Zoom. It is what it is, and in the moment I'll deal with it for what it is.
Fair enough.
So
Which, like again, I think is a good opportunity to point out that there's not like a right or a wrong way to take feedback. I mean, everybody's got their own way of going about things.
mhm, yep.
So we are obviously comfortable doing us. You be comfortable doing you as long as you're not. Actually, I can't even like. I was gonna add a qualifier to that, but I'm gonna retract that. Just you do you.
Mhm,
And if it turns out to be the wrong approach with the people in your lives, that's on them to communicate, not for me.
right. Um, I to move us forward just a little bit here.
Yes.
Um, though I think it's important to, after I'm done talking to somebody, to evaluate that specific conversation. I think part of the most important role is reflecting on my part of the relationship.
Hmm.
Because regardless how you represent yourself or how you put a statement out there or how you sarcastically address a certain situation, what's important, or in my opinion, what's most important in a conversation I'm having is how I conduct myself. If you say something shitty, that doesn't mean I have to be shitty back. Because one of the most common things in I'm going to say North American language because I don't know much about how Chinese communicate and their hierarchy and the sexes and such. But I've seen a lot in a lot of conversations because one thing I do is I study people. I study grammatical influences in conversation, so on and so forth. And one thing I find happens a lot is when one person's a little bit sarcastic, whether it's good or bad, how the person interprets it is what they end up giving back. Oh, that was a little bit negatively sarcastic. Well, you know what? Well, blah, blah, blah to you. And, well, here, let's do this way. Because you're a little bit of a douchebag when you do this and you do that. Well, there's another residual sarcasm coming out there. And then from there on out, that conversation just goes downhill. So if we more so out of any conversation when we're done, hone in our thoughts about how we're communicating, whether that other person's a smartass or not, we can be better prepared to address it and bring it back to a positively influential conversation. I can influence you to come out of that sarcasm by hitting on something I know you like, by just point blank answering your sarcasm with an honest, non sarcastic answer. That changes the whole conversation. And we can go on for another 25 minutes now because we're not going to get pissed off and hang up in 7.
Kind of raises something in my mind. Somebody years ago had asked me like why is it that people who normally are very private people feel so comfortable telling you their secrets? And I was really like pondering that for a while because I'm thinking, well, it's not like I'm asking people for their secrets. People volunteer things to me. It just like and I couldn't put my finger on why. And I was having this conversation with my old boss's wife, Therese, and she said it's because you're such an open and honest person. You volunteer things that most people would assume that are the kind of things you should keep to yourself. And so when you approach a group dynamic in a certain kind of way, or you approach a social interaction with even an individual in a certain kind of way, a person's natural response is to think, okay, I guess that's what we're doing now. And
Mhm.
it redefines the social dynamic. And I think a lot of what you're talking about is that it's communicating the, okay, this is what we're doing now. Now that can work positive, negative, or indifferent.
Mhm.
And I think that's why if we think about how we are going to approach a situation, like if I can't handle any more situations this week of like people complaining about work, I can't handle hearing it. My stress level's up to here with that. It's like maybe if I approach the conversation, I shouldn't complain about work. Maybe I should talk about brighter things, because it's highly unlikely that if I'm talking about my hobbies, somebody's going to be like, yeah, that happy story you told me, it really reminded me of what an asshole my boss is.
Yeah, fair enough.
And if they are determined to drag things that way, like you say, we're not obligated to get dragged.
Right. Hmm. Well, and in the same respect, when somebody brings up, oh, you know what, like this happened, this is why my boss is such an asshole. Oh my gosh. One thing I often do, and I have had the conversation about work and people hating their job and bullshit like that. But I'm lucky. I really like my boss. I really do. I really have a decent relationship with him. So I come back with, oh, like, I'm really sorry to hear that because I did this today, and this is the kind of gratitude I got. And I find when I do that, a lot of times it puts people on alert and think, oh, you know what? Maybe I should be grateful for something. What can I be grateful for? What can I be grateful for? Oh, yeah. You know what happened to me at work? I know that part happened to you, an asshole, but this good thing happened. Hmm. Look at that. Eh? So this is what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Jedi mind trick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I like about it, where you started the conversation, where we're at right now, I mean, the common thread that seems to be emerging to me is one of intentionality.
Right.
Because I mean, you're trying to leave as little to chance as possible with the social interactions, if I'm understanding you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm
It's
not
like
going to move
you
that
said
forward.
you wanted to move the conversation forward, but I honestly have no idea where the conversation is going, 'cause you didn't tell me. So I'm just sort of guessing, maybe along with the audience here. I don't know.
Oh, it's going to go where it naturally goes. It's going to progress to where it needs to be.
Okay, so you want to move us forward another notch then?
Okay. So one thing I've always found really awkward was, if we're having a conversation, if I want to see somebody, not so much with you, but with a lot of other people, like a friend of mine, Mike, we used to go over to his place and hang out and just have a good time. And when I want to see him, or when I want to go over and visit, I have a really hard time with just inviting myself. So something I still really have to work on is before, this is one of the prerequisites for the later on conversations we're going to have. How do I not come off as a entitled douchebag and say, hey, guess what? I know Thursdays we usually get together, so guess what I'm doing? I'm coming over Wednesday because I want to see you tomorrow. It, that to me is really awkward. So a lot of the times I really have to think about, okay, so how do I put the point across that I want to set up a meetup? I want to, you know, in our phone conversation, I want to broach the subject about getting together for coffee. With you, it's a lot different because it's just, okay, hey, you're in town, let's get together for coffee.
Well, my what my dad used to do is, because he was like, everybody thought he was a super social guy, and it probably it was because he socialized a lot,
Right.
but he had a lot of social anxiety too. So it was like you, it was a case of, well, I'd really like to see my friend so and so, but I feel weird about inviting myself over, and if I wait for this guy to invite me, it's never going to happen. So what he would do to make himself feel less awkward is he would introduce a different awkwardness to the situation so that the inviting himself over part was the smallest piece of the pie. Be a case of like, hey, I'm coming over for coffee. Don't put the coffee on. I'm bringing a thermos because your coffee tastes like shit. So insulting the guy, that was the big awkward. The small awkward then was I'm coming over for coffee.
Mhm. That was actually a conversation you and I had once. Don't make coffee. I'll make it when I get there.
Well, my ex-wife made terrible coffee, so you are well justified. Allison, if you're listening, your coffee still sucks.
So, what are some things that you think about in the off hours when you're not actually in the conversation?
Well, since our last I don't know if it was our last recording, but our last conversation we had before today, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about um like the things you had said about like what's behind your motivation if you send me a text like on my end where it's like kind of like a drive-by shooting. It was like, hey, hope you're having a good day. Blah. And I thought it was just like a really like pop into your head, pop out kind of thing. I didn't realize how much intentionality was behind that as well, where it's a case of, hey, I want to send him a message because I'm hoping to elicit these kinds of emotions because I'm feeling these kind of things. And I want to like squish as much meaning into as few words as possible because we both have busy days kind of thing.
Mhm.
And it's really kind of like jump started a different relationship habit with me, which does tie into kind of what you've brought up here today, where it's like in the off hours, I'm thinking like, what kind of small gestures can I do that are going to be meaningful on your end? And sometimes too, it's like, when you're talking about, well, I feel awkward inviting myself over for coffee at my buddy Mike's place. I had a thought pop into my head the other day. It's like, nah, I'm not going to pitch it to him because it's like kind of a big ask, right? So you and I live about a 10-hour drive from each other.
Mhm.
And up until recently, uh, like for several years, I haven't had a car, right? Like I've been doing public transit, I've been doing Uber, I've been renting a car once in a while if I need one. But I was thinking, cool, I'm mobile again. I wonder if Jay wants to meet for coffee. And I looked on Chat GPT and I'm like, hey, Chat GPT, what is the exact halfway point between where Jason lives and where I live if we wanted to go meet up for coffee? And what are some places we could meet? So it turns out we're looking at like a 4 hour, 35-minute drive to meet at this central location, like 4:35 ish for me, 4:45 ish for you. Your favorite kind
Figures.
of coffee shop happens to be in this town. And I'm thinking, well, there we go. We could meet for coffee. And I'm like, for me, I got no problem jumping in the car right now and driving 4.5 hours to see you. I mean, I drive longer to see you because it's worth it to go sit and drink shitty coffee or for a couple hours and then drive home. I
Yep.
would dedicate a whole day to that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, how cool would that be? And I'm playing out this whole scenario. I never like put it to you because I thought, well, I can't expect you to like drive like basically like 9 hours in a day just to hang out with me. But then I started refining the ideas like, okay, well, maybe next time I'm in town, then uh, we can get together like we normally do. It's just, I don't know, just measuring out like what's appropriate, what's not, what would I like, what would I not like, what would I take out of it, all that kind of thing.
That actually would be really cool. So I have to ask, what was the halfway point?
If I remember correctly, I think it was Fernie.
Oh, okay. I assumed it might be like Boston Bar, which isn't too far away.
Yeah, I think the reason it recommended Fernie is just because there was a lot more options.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one restaurant in Boston Bar and it's usually closed. So
Yeah.
that's not a good option.
Yeah, and for anybody who's wondering, Boston Bar is not the one with Sam Malone. It's a that was a terrible joke.
Wow. Yeah. Well, at least that's where everybody knows your name. So, have you ever thought about like virtual activities? Like not
What,
just
like co-hosting
Zoom.
a podcast?
Um, no, like you and I, aside from Zoom, do like a face call, FaceTime for you. No, actually, it's not because you're back to right now. But we could do like a FaceTime kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you go to one coffee shop, you go to your favorite coffee shop, I'll go to mine, and we just set up our phones and we have coffee together.
You know, I have done that in the past. Like my ex, though she turned out to be the embodiment of pure evil, she occasionally had a good idea. And I mean, there was a portion of our relationship that was long distance. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
But it's really, really hard to feel connected to somebody that you love who's a long way away. So what we did was we had a date night where I went to an Olive Garden near me. She went to an Olive Garden near her, and we each set up our phones on the table on a video call,
Mm-hmm.
each of us at the table for one, and we just sort of had dinner together.
That's cool.
And the serving staff on both ends thought that was like the most romantic and cool thing. Now, stands to reason it doesn't have to be just romance, right? I mean,
There can
I
be
think with
romance.
romantic and sexual relationships, people figure out the virtual activities all the time. But I think,
Yeah.
platonically speaking, the idea of just going and sitting and sipping coffee somewhere not at home,
Mm-hmm.
again, that would bring so much intention to the interaction. It wouldn't feel like an afterthought. Like if I'm sitting in front of Zoom at home, there's a tendency to check my email, maybe play a game or something like that
Right.
while I'm talking to you. But if I'm sitting at, um, well,
A coffee shop, a restaurant, whatever.
yeah, I'm probably more likely to be focused on the conversation just because I don't know, the surroundings are less engaging to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it wouldn't be much different. Like we've always had a platonic relationship, and we will probably always have a platonic relationship, family based. But we've gone out to dinner before, so it wouldn't be much different for us to set up a phone opposite our booth and just you and I go out for dinner kind of thing and chat and have some food together. Breaking bread, as the Bible says. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would be
I
nice
mean,
because I mean, how I handle things now. I mean, if I miss you and I know it happens to be a day when you're working and you're not available for whatever reason, or maybe it's just a weird time of night and I'm having trouble sleeping, I'm not going to wake you up in the middle of the night when I know you got to um, hit work at first thing in the morning. Sometimes I'll just like get into one of our old podcasts because I mean, it's just a way to revisit the conversation. I can hear your voice. And
mhm,
then, you know, I kind of get my little bit of a fix and then I can move forward.
fair enough. Yeah. And as we've done to each other before, we can also always send a text, and when the next person, whenever the other person happens to see it, they can respond and get a little bit of a fix that way. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 hours away, but if we're and this is something I've thought about off time is just sending you a text saying, "Hey man, do you want to talk later?" Because I don't know what you're doing in that moment, so I'm not going to preemptively think, okay, you know what, he's going to drop everything and have time with me right now. Yay! No, if that's what you want to do, it's fine. But one thing I've practiced and I've thought about off hours is okay, what is that message going to consist of? Do I want to do Zoom? Am I going to want to have a phone conversation? Am I just going to want to text? Because for me, the communication doesn't matter. I know you prefer phone calls, so that's why like I would send you a message and say, hey, you got some time tonight? Let's have a conversation.
Fair.
You know, I think all of this just allows us to set each other up for relationship success by focusing on yourself and making sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's on your own side. You're allowing the other person more opportunity to have a successful relationship with you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, unless you got anything else to add, I think that's a really good place to wrap things up.
Yeah, I agree.
So, did you have any formalized closing thoughts put together?
Uh, no, but we're also interested in having a conversation with you guys.
Yeah.
So don't hesitate to send us a message, an email, however you want it, on Facebook Messenger, whatever. And, you know, if it's something we can get to, or you want to do, you want to come into a conversation with us and have a conversation with us on our weekly meetings, well, let us know. We'll do it. We'll set up a time, we'll set up a place, and we'll just have a conversation about whatever you want to. Or maybe you like something we did in the past. We can revisit that stuff too.
Okay. Well, I want to just say first and foremost, thank you for bringing up this idea, because I like the idea of bringing a little bit more intention into not just our relationship, but into my other relationships. It's been kind of, well, not kind of, it's been really thought provoking for me. Hopefully, it's been also thought provoking for the audience. As always, if anybody listening has got thoughts on this or anything else we've talked about on this show, or anywhere else for that matter, send us an email in thebloodpod@gmail.com. And until next time, my friends, one love.